Hello everybody, Tommyruin here, and today we're doing a developer Q&A with, well, not a developer Q&A, we're doing a Q&A with one of the Ascension staff. I'm talking to Zukien, who is a community manager from the Ascension team. Hello Zukien, how are you doing today?
Hello, everybody. I'm Zukien. I am the community manager, and I started fairly recently on Ascension. I've had other private server experience, and I am here ready to rock and roll with release. We are super excited to bring you new content and unique gameplay and features to everyone who is involved in Ascension, and we're so glad you're here to hear some answers to some frequently asked questions.
Well, there were so many questions sent in. I was honestly blown away with the amount of questions which people had. So I think we should dive right into it. And a lot of the questions which were asked were actually about the hardcore realm, and that's the realm which we didn't actually get to see throughout the whole of the beta testing stage. So why didn't we get any news on the hardcore server? And can you give us an example on some of the custom events that were announced? This is a question asked by CarlosLFR.
So it's a great question, and Carlos, I'm happy to answer it. The hardcore realm will be our sort of permanent PTR after release, and it's going to have experimental features which have been talked about before, and we can probably address those details a little bit later. But in terms of events, there are some events that have been talked about, mentioned, and implemented in different places, but these are most likely going to come down to player polls. We have really been enjoying the feedback that everyone has been giving through our poll system, and it has allowed us to make decisions that will benefit the community as a whole. So when we're considering events, we will most likely make each of them into a player poll or make one poll with a lot of different event options and see what becomes the popular choice.
Okay. And Sheeni asks why the hardcore server wasn't actually tested in beta.
So our focus was on the Sargeras and Andorhal realms. The Tichondrius realm, we want to really work on having a solid foundation below us in order to move forward with custom content on that realm. So in beta, we have been really focusing on balancing. We've been focusing on the systems and making sure the UI is working correctly, and all of the different things that we have added into the game. We want to make sure that those are functioning properly on the two main realms before we release Tichondrius to the public.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense because Sargeras was released first, wasn't it? And that has the majority of the custom content that people will see. It also has the item drop on death and free-for-all PvP. But the people on Andorhal are also getting that custom UI and the ability to change abilities at will kind of thing. So you did have that progression from Sargeras to Andorhal, and I guess the next step is Tichondrius further down the line.
Definitely, and Tichondrius is going to have the base elements from Sargeras, including the free-for-all PvP and so forth, and for that reason, we wanted to make sure all of the systems were functioning properly on Sargeras before we moved forward onto Tichondrius.
That makes a lot of sense. So back a long time ago in the beta testing period, there was a hunger bar that was removed, much to people's delight. And is this going to be a thing which is going to be put on the hardcore realm? Is it still being developed so that there's a more immersive system behind it? People want to know about the hunger bar.
So it will not be on Sargeras or Andorhal. We have removed it from there, and we are keeping it removed from there. We might experiment with it on Tichondrius in the future, but it depends on what the player base wants. And if all of you want it to be a system in place on Tichondrius, then it is most definitely a possibility. And again, we can move forward with a player poll on that. However, the hunger bar and the thirst bar and survival elements will be reworked onto Tichondrius. And the way it would be reworked is we would be looking at different systems and how to make it a true survival aspect if we are to implement it. We want it to be something that gives an extra layer of challenge into the game.
So Tichondrius is actually shaping up to be quite an exciting experience with all these custom experiences on it. Clumsyhero asks, what about custom races? This is something which I'd really like to see in the game. I'd like to see a little bit away from the Blizz-like side of things and have more custom features on it. I know a lot of people are against that, and I know the goal behind the project is to make it a vanilla-like experience with this classless system, and then as you move up the realms you get progressively more custom. But is there any chance to get some custom races in the mix?
So at this point in time, we do not have plans for custom races. They, I know. We really have thought about ogres. I mean, their dance is amazing. So
it's the one where they swing their hands to the side, isn't it?
yes, definitely. And you know, they shake what their mothers gave them. But in terms of custom races, it might be a possibility far into the future, or something that could ultimately be implemented on Tichondrius, and if it is very well received, the possibilities are there.
Okay, that's hopeful, very hopeful. I'm waiting for that Naga or the Pandaren, the little fluffy fat ball. I can't wait. So TheDane asks, will Ascension Future updates focus on improving the content for Endgame PVE or PvP? More raids / dungeons or custom events, PvP, arena / battlegrounds / events? I think that's quite a long-winded question. I think he's asking what's the main focus of the project moving forward. Will it be custom events, or will it just be progressing through the different patch cycles?
So the easiest answer to this question, Dane, is that we are looking to have a mix of different elements. However, we do have a timeline that will be up very shortly, and it will be available on the website. And the timeline will bring you from vanilla through the Dark Portal into Burning Crusade, and then off to Northrend to fight the Lich King ultimately. And all along that path, we're going to be improving custom features that we offer. And so these features will be moving into different elements of the game, and whatever is well received is what will most likely be implemented into the future. So the best answer to that question is that it's going to be a mix. We want to give people a side of the Blizz-like experience, because that tends to be very well received, but we also want to add in some custom elements that make us stand apart from the rest of the crowd.
I think that makes sense, because there's so many servers going around nowadays that are just Blizz-like, or so they call Blizz-like, going through the expansions. And I think the main draw for me to Ascension was that it throws something different into the mix. You've got this custom class element to it, and I think a lot of people are looking for that little bit extra on top of their Blizz-like experience to revitalize the base game. So I think that sounds really promising going forward. I mean, I can't imagine how far away we are from killing the Lich King. I don't know if you've got any spoilers on the timeline for when we're going to be doing that, or when we are proposed to be doing that.
It is looking like it's most likely going to be a few years. To be perfectly honest, we are looking to spread out content release so that people have a chance to do all the content from vanilla through Wrath of the Lich King. So the timeline right now is looking at about 2022 for the full Wrath of the Lich King release to be present, and everything to be available up to patch 3.3.5.
Wow. Wow, that's sooner than I thought, to be honest. Because I mean, when Death Knights come in, there's going to be a whole lot of balancing to be done when it comes to PvP and PvE. So I don't envy you guys on that job. So there was a quest. Oh, sorry, carry on.
Oh, I was just going to say, Death Knights are a whole other can of worms.
So we got a question from Jacketyification, and he asks about Duel Spec and the idea of Duel Spec when leveling up. And I thought this was a really, really good question, because it's something which I thought of before. And he's asking if there is a possibility to have 2 specs when leveling towards 60, because when people are doing dungeons, not everyone's going to want to level as a healer or a tank. So the ability to switch between healing, tank and DPS would be quite beneficial to get dungeon groups going. And he says that it will really enhance the leveling experience. So do you guys have any plans to do that, or to make it easier for tanks and healers to level up?
It is a lot of debate right now on the quad spec system. both on the staff end and development end, and then the player base. So we are looking at a lot of different options for it. But right now we're leaning more towards the idea of having it available at level 60, at least for the time being. However, just like any other factor on the server, these things can change with player feedback, and we want to make sure that the player base feels as if they are listened to. We want to listen to your feedback, and we want to make sure that you are enjoying the experience on Ascension.
Okay. Well, that sounds promising. If more people start talking about it, and there are some problems when we are leveling up when the server goes live, if that does happen, then there could be the chance that we are given dual spec lower down so we can tank and heal and DPS and do dungeons together. So that sounds good.
And with the idea of dual spec or quad spec, we do want to make it available to people. We don't want to make at least the first spec choice totally unobtainable. We want to make it so that you feel as if it is a goal you can strive for. Now, when it comes to gold prices, gold is actually pretty easily obtainable on Ascension. You can farm out a good amount of gold in not too long of a time. That being said, we don't want to make it so exorbitant that it dissuades people from going for it.
Well, I think back in Wrath of the Lich King, it was 1,000 gold for dual spec, and with the extra gold that's coming in on Ascension from the increased item drops, you do get a lot more gold. So I think it's fair to have a 1,000 gold cost, and to make it more challenging, or not challenging, but it takes a lot longer to get the 3rd and 4th specs. I don't think it is that bad, but I think when people saw quad spec, they were just like, okay, I'm going to be able to get 4 specs. Whereas I think the development goal was to make it so that it's more of an achievement and more of a reward from hard work to get that 4th spec, isn't it? I think that.
Yes, we want things to be more effort driven than anything. When somebody is able to achieve a certain level of equipment, power, talents, whatever it may be, when it is well earned, then it creates value on that. And that's what we are striving for the player base.
So I've got a few questions about PvP here. What are the plans for PvP on Andorhal? Personally, I'd like to see battlegrounds be more active, especially on Andorhal since it's not free-for-all PvP. Are you planning on doing any weird changes to world PvP, like capture zones to encourage guild versus guild or whatever? And that was, oh sorry, that was 2 questions. The first question is about Andorhal and encouraging PvP, and that's by Swag Khalifa.
So Swag Khalifa, great name by the way. Our plans for PvP on Andorhal. We are going to have a title system based on honorable kills and battlegrounds, and that is our glory system. And there's going to be more information about that relatively soon. And once you unlock the vanilla ranks through your PvP content, you will have access to PvP gear for honor points. So that's our plan for PvP on Andorhal.
Is there going to be any development to PvP on Sargeras? Because you've got the free-for-all PvP, but is there going to be a lot of instanced PvP promoted as well?
We plan on it, yes. We plan on having arena systems and battleground systems in play on both realms, so PvP will be a definite aspect on all realms and will be available at all times.
Okay, well that's encouraging. Mad Elephant, I kind of touched on this just a minute ago. Are you planning on doing any weird changes to world PvP, like capture zones to encourage guild versus guild? And I think this is something which will probably be tested on the hardcore realm and then pushed onto the other realms if people like it. And it was an idea that I enjoyed the thought of back when I was thinking up ideas for what I think Ascension could do better, kind of thing. And having capture points which guilds could flood towards, and they can rule the zone and make people pay to go in and whatever. Is there anything planned for a system like that?
These are things that have been considered and talked about pretty extensively. And yes, any experimental features are first going to be pushed onto Tichondrius. We want to see what the feedback is on them, see what can be improved, improve it, and then once again see how the player base reacts. At that point, it could be implemented onto Sargeras or Andorhal. However, it may also stay on Tichondrius, where we're not sure about moving so much custom content onto Sargeras or Andorhal unless the player base really asks for it.
Yeah, okay, and I guess that's why you have a differentiation between Sargeras and Tichondrius, because they'll end up being the same if everything comes over. So you've got to have some kind of push to get people to go on Tichondrius and test out these.
Definitely, and we want Tichondrius to be a realm where you can enjoy the custom features and experience something different in your day-to-day gaming. If your main realm is Sargeras, you'll be able to go on Tichondrius and just have fun with some of the experimental features that we've developed.
So this is another custom bit of content which was teased a long time ago, and it's got me really, really excited. And that is the bounty system, which was, I think it was announced over like around Christmas time. That was when it was first kind of hinted at, and we've heard nothing of it recently. Is there any word on the bounty system? This one's asked by Rysosis.
Rysosis, we really like the idea of the bounty system, and it could be a future patch update. We do have the availability of implementing it at a later point. We want to really do our release and get things moving, get our systems all set so that everything is working as it's meant to be. And at that point, we'll look at different systems like the bounty system and the possibility of implementing it. But it is something that we like the idea of as well. I think it would create some very dynamic gameplay.
Just for people who don't know, can you give a brief overview of what the bounty system will try and become?
So the bounty system would allow you to target certain players that will show up on the bounty window, and at that point you can go and eliminate them for rewards. So certain people will earn bounty points on them for their actions, and you will be able to go and punish them for what they've done and earn a reward for doing so.
So all those gankers better beware, because there's going to be people coming after them.
Oh, most definitely.
Well, I look forward to that. So we've got some questions about faction balance here, and this is something which I think every different expansion has massive swings in the faction balance, and that's because of different racials and whatever. So how will you guys combat faction imbalance with the human racial being so good in PvP?
So this is something that we've actually been doing analytics and discussion on very recently. We are looking at actually giving a weaker version of the PvP trinket available at a lower level, and then a normal one at level 60. And the weaker version, as an example, may have a 5-minute cooldown as opposed to the human racial that has a lower cooldown on it. So it would still be giving the human racial a benefit. However, every other race would have the availability of escaping from CCs or stuns, etc.
Well, that sounds like a good change, and I think a lot of the problems in vanilla WoW were due to the different classes which each of the factions got, and because we're on a factionless, or sorry, not a factionless, a classless server, we have access to all the abilities that the other faction would have lost out on. So we're saved in that respect, but there's no plans for being able to choose your racial ability in the pipeline, is there?
It is something that could be considered. We do like the racials as they are at this moment. However, we'll see how everything works out and see how everything balances out with the racials, and then make decisions from there.
So we won't have any trolls running around with every man for himself just yet.
That is a possibility in the future, but who knows? Every troll for himself could work.
So this kind of goes along those lines, and it was something that was it was something that was implemented early on in the development cycle, which was a merged auction house, and it was removed later on. But this was all quite good because it meant that the economy was stronger and everyone could buy things and sell things, and you didn't have this split economy between the Horde and the Alliance. Is there any possibility of having them merged once again? Because on the beta servers, especially on Sargeras, the Horde auction house was bare and the Alliance auction house had all the good stuff on it. So is there any chance that they will be merged, or is that going to be another, we'll see how it goes, and if it does split, then we'll have to act upon it kind of thing?
It is one of those things that we'll have to see how it works out. However, a big problem with a lot of other servers is when they merge the auction house, they typically use the Blackwater auction house. And the problem with the Blackwater auction house is it has very much higher deposits and cuts on auctions and purchases. So we'd want to avoid that, and we'd want to make it something that everyone can access and something that is balanced in the amount of gold it's asking you for. They will be separate on launch, but it is definitely possible in the future for us to merge them.
Okay. So we've got some questions about the 2 different servers, or the 3 different servers with Tichondrius not releasing. Why are Andorhal and Sargeras being released on different dates? This question was asked by a few people, but I picked up on the question asked by Life. So why are they being released on separate dates? We've got Andorhal being released on the 14th and Sargeras being released on the 21st. Why is that?
So, Life, it's a great question. There was a forum post put up about this subject, and in the forum post, we had stated that they have 2 separate release dates because we want to have our staff be involved with one realm at a time, and this will allow for support and troubleshooting, and it will make sure we have maximum efficiency on each realm as they release. And along with that point, we want to make sure everything launches smoothly. We want to make sure that the issues that we may face can be taken care of, and that the player base is not going to feel like we are splitting our attention in so many different directions that problems are not being addressed. And finally, Sargeras, the high-risk server, it has additional systems that could cause some issues with scripting and coding, and we want to make sure that the foundational elements are solid, that we have something working that would work under a higher load, and then we'll be able to implement Sargeras as a live release once we know that that foundation is set with Andorhal.
Okay, well that makes sense. It's just getting things sorted on the realm which will cause the least problems before you release the realms which could potentially give you a bit more of a problem. That makes sense.
Yeah, we really want to make sure that when you log in and play, everything is working how it's meant to. And in order to do that, we'd like to take just a little bit more time on Sargeras to make sure that things are functioning properly.
I think also for people who are going to be coming into the game for the first time, may not realize that there is a free-for-all PvP realm, so it stops people having that negative experience if they go onto this free-for-all PvP realm and get ganked and lose all their stuff. It stops that from happening by having a release at separate dates, I think.
The first time you lose gear from an enemy player, your heart drops into your stomach. So I understand.
Yeah, I had that happen a lot when I was leveling up. I know how they feel. Okay, so we've got a few more questions from people about the different servers. Zim asks, are the polls about Sargeras medium core server, are they going to affect the soft core server too? So there was a poll about experience rates and there was a poll about raid sizes. Are those polls going to affect what happens on the Andorhal server?
So from what we've noticed, it looks as if a lot more of the player base are going to be leaning towards Andorhal, especially at first. One, with it releasing slightly sooner, and 2, with it not having the free-for-all PvP aspect and the loot on death. We view it as Andorhal having more of a population. We don't want to close doors where we don't have to, so because these polls are affecting Sargeras, we're going to see how they work on Sargeras and the features end up implementing on Sargeras, and then we'll see about possibly implementing those same things onto Andorhal. But for now, Andorhal will have 40-man raids and will stay at 1 times XP.
Okay. And this is slightly different to what Swag Khalifa asked. This is another question by Swag Khalifa, and he asked about custom bosses and events, which we've already talked about. Are there any ideas or thoughts in the pipeline about having custom XP events for different weekends and getting people onto the game and promoting Ascension by having increased XP weekends? Are those things which are talked about as well?
They have been talked about, and we're looking at possibilities with events such as those. In terms of the bosses and events, again, it's going to come down to the fact that we love our player polls and we love hearing what you have to say.
Okay, enough of those player polls. Let's ask some different questions now. So we got a question by Orc Pork, and this is going to be continued by a question by Life, and it's about the Instant 60 server, which was a massive hit and brought so many people into the game. Orc Pork asks, because they don't have much time to level, will there ever be an Instant 60 server released? And another question by Life was that it would allow players to continue testing and discovering bugs and other issues, so it'll simply help the game overall. Is an Instant 60 server something which you guys are thinking about, or is that merely just for testing things?
As of right now, we look at it merely for testing things, and the Instant 60 server idea holds well until we possibly implement a Instant 60 option inside of our store. So as of right now, we do not have any plans for having a permanent Instant 60 server. However, in the future, because some people do not have the time to put towards leveling, we may release the scroll of experience onto the cash store. However, that would be some months after release.
There was a few questions about the shop, and a lot of those were answered on the blog post about the release date. I think it was that one. I'll put a link in the description for the link to the question and answer about the cash shop, because there are a lot of answers to people's questions that they asked for this Q&A, and I didn't want to ask them because they had already been answered. But if you look down in the description and you've got a question about the cash shop, it's most likely answered in that link. So that's a good place to look for questions about the cash shop. We've got some questions now that are just random. I picked them from a crowd of questions. And Mad Elephant asks, I saw someone in the forum suggesting that each legendary could only be possessed by one character in each realm. What do you think about this? And I think this is a really cool idea. Having one legendary, that one character to wield the legendary. And I think this will work better on Sargeras, where there's player looting and you can change hands with the legendary. But isn't it just such a cool idea to have that one person, the king of the hill, that everyone will be fighting against to try and gain that legendary from?
It sounds like a great concept, and we're actually going to have an item that will be in that form, and that will be the Talisman of the Binding Shard, the neck piece from Molten Core.
Yeah, the one that only got looted once and then got removed from the loot tables.
Yes, but otherwise, our legendaries, we're looking at keeping them in the traditional sense of people can have legendaries, but if you are on Sargeras, be wary, because if you die, there's a chance that it may drop.
So legendary looting is a thing?
It most definitely can be.
Oh wow, okay, that's big news. I don't think that's been announced before, so watch out guys if you get a legendary on Sargeras. I do not envy you. So with legendaries, are they going to be things which can be ensured using the fell commutation system that was in place, or are they going to be outside of the system?
Every item in game will be available to be insured, so that includes legendaries. So when somebody mentions Thunder Fury, you know that it's insured.
So when everyone mentions Thunder Fury, I don't think it'll just be that one person. Okay, so will that have an extortionate gold cost attached to it, having to insure a legendary, or will it just be a normal gold cost?
The gold cost scales up with the quality of gear, so yes, it will have a higher gold cost than epics, but it's not going to be something that will completely destroy your gold inventory.
Okay, that's good to know, because I'm going to get all the legendaries. So Evil Bob Sauce 2012 asks, will random enchants be added to crafted gear so professions don't become useless quickly? And this is something which I've noticed. Profession gear which you create doesn't get the chance to have an RE on it, or random enchant. And is there any plans in the pipeline to make it so that these crafted bits of gear can get random enchants on, so they don't have that instant devaluement? I know you can random enchant them once they've been created, but will there ever be a time where crafted gear will have a chance to have an RE on it when it's made?
So I don't want to continue giving the answer that things are still being discussed, but it is still being discussed and is on the table. So you can enchant the gear already once it's made, and we know that that becomes a gold sink, but that also helps our economy ultimately in allowing you to have random enchantments on your gear and ultimately choose the random enchantment you want through the altars. So we've definitely considered the possibility of when you craft for it to have a chance of having a random enchant, but it's still in discussion.
So you said there you can choose your random enchant at the altar. That's definitely not the way it works when I've been testing it. The chance of you getting the thing which you want is very, very low. So is there any way that you can, is there any systems in place that you're thinking about that would, this is probably going to be another one of those answers, isn't it, where you can potentially target the random enchant that you're looking for, or is it meant to be random to remove gold from the economy?
It is meant to be random. So I said choose. When you go in and get your random enchant from the altar, you can choose if you want to keep the one you have that is new on your item, or if you want to reforge it again. And the system's in place to drive player efforts and to allow balance in the economical factors on the realms. So we don't have plans to rework it right now. But again, if enough player feedback is put out, it is something that is possibly changeable.
Okay. Oh, I can imagine there's going to be quite a few people writing in who have spent thousands of gold, but we'll have to see. So finally, this is the final question from me. Zikarax asks, where did the idea of a classless realm come from? And this is something which I was also wondering, because it's not something I've actually thought about before, but when I did hear about Ascension, I was like, damn, this is a good idea. Why hasn't anyone thought of this before? So where did classless come from, and what was the thought process behind making Ascension happen?
So Zikarax, we really wanted to create a world that was unique and really enforced player choices driving the gameplay. And classless really does that. It makes you decide on each of your levels that you obtain ability essence or talent essences, what you want to do with those essences. And it creates a dynamic environment for everyone involved. It creates the possibility of endless possibilities and creates a place where people feel like they can flex their creative muscles and be able to use their imagination in the game that they love so much.
I think that was the thing which really hit home for me. It was the game that I knew. It was World of Warcraft, but it was basically reborn with the fact that you can make so many new decisions that will influence how you level up. And I mentioned that in the journey video which I made, which was about my experience leveling up to level 60, and it was like new, and it completely changed my perception on World of Warcraft. It was like playing it again with this whole fresh face to it. It was bizarre, because I was expecting just it to be like another private server that you log on and you're like, oh, okay, I got to do this, I got to do that. But no, you have to make these decisions every time you level up, and choosing new abilities and crafting these builds. And the amount of time which you spend just sat there thinking like, should I take Sinister Strike, or should I take some ability that will save my ass? And you're like, you have to actually think, which is different to a normal realm where you get given your abilities and you just roll with it. And I think that's the main selling point for Ascension for me personally, is the thought process that goes behind all of these different choices which you have to make as you're leveling up.
And what I've found is that it creates an environment where theory crafters and stat crunchers and min maxers, as well as casual players or raiders, could come forward and be able to build characters based upon a role-playing desire, based upon a PvP desire, or based around a PvE desire, and be able to have that character that they dreamed of in the first place. And that's feedback that we've been getting a lot, and we really appreciate and enjoy that feedback, because it shows us that this is something that is well received and something that people are enjoying, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, I think that's the feedback which I've received the most as well, is that it's just something which they've always thought about, that they've wanted, and it can now be realized, which I think is really, really great. And I can't wait for it to go live. I know you guys probably can't as well, but my God, I don't think I'm going to be there for the actual release, but I cannot wait to sit down and burn many hours getting to level 60.
Well, and on the 14th when Andorhal releases, and then on the 21st when Sargeras releases, and just to remind everybody, that's at 6 p.m. CEST for both realms. They are releasing a week apart from each other, and so if you just Google search the time difference, if you are not in CEST, then you'll know when it's releasing in your time zone.
Yeah, and do you guys have any estimates about what you're going to be expecting when it comes to release? I know you saw massive number spikes for the instant 60 realms. I can imagine a lot of those players are staying on.
Yeah, we are expecting a good amount of population, and the best part about that is we have a dynamic respawn system in place, so you aren't going to have to worry about questing and leveling other than people trying to gank you. That might be a concern of yours.
Yeah, you always got to watch out for that.
Right. But we do have the dynamic respawn system, so your quest items and the quest mobs, they are going to be respawning in response to how many players are in the area. So you will have the availability of questing without any issues.
Well, that's all the questions which I've got on my sheet here. I'd just like to say again a massive thank you for you coming to speak to me and answering all these questions which people have asked. It is really nice to have this communication between the developers and the player base, and I really hope it's something that will continue. I'm sure it will do. You're doing an amazing job as a community manager, and I can't wait for Ascension to release now.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate all of you in the player base and your support and commitment and your questions. We love hearing your feedback, and there will be more player polls. There will be more opportunities for you to submit your feedback in an official way that will allow us to make changes that benefit the community. There is one more announcement I wanted to make about Andorhal and Sargeras, and that is that Andorhal and Sargeras are going to be closing down soon because we are trying to get all of our systems in place for release, and quite honestly, if we kept them open, you would be experiencing a lot of restarts and a lot of reloads and things that would probably annoy you more than just waiting for a couple of days. So we have an event that's happening on the closing of both of these beta realms, and we want to close it with a bang, and here's how we're doing it. So all zones will become free for all, and there will be no safe spots, including cities or taverns. So you are in danger wherever you are in the world. All honorable kills will be reset. The counters will be reset. And here's the fun part. During the event, permadeath is active. If you die...
What?
Yes, if you die, your character will be inaccessible.
Oh, God.
And the person with the highest honorable kill count upon the server closing wins the event. You'll be able to view it in real time on the website as the event progresses. And the player who wins the entire event will be receiving the exclusive title of the Annihilator.
Oh my God, that sounds amazing.
But this title will only be available to 2 players in total, one from Andorhal and one from Sargeras. So if you feel you have what it takes to earn the most honorable kills in the shortest amount of time before these servers close down, have at it.
Well, that's definitely not going to be me. But, man, that's got me so excited.
We think it'll be a very fun event and something that will allow people to feel like they have that final shot of a cool reward before the beta closes. And when you're walking around after release with the Annihilator after your name, people are going to know what you did.
They're going to fear that person. Wow, well, that sounds absolutely incredible. I cannot wait to see the carnage that ensues with that. Good luck to everybody who logs in. I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? Good luck to everyone who logs in tomorrow.
And we may be making the event last a couple of days. It might not just be for the one day. It may go for a couple of days, and then we will see who has the most honorable kills at the end.
This is like the Hunger Games. This is the Hunger Games.
Yeah, you know, it very much is close to that. If you feel that you are on Katniss's level, then have fun.
May the odds be ever in your favour. Right, well, I think that's everything. So thank you once again for coming and speaking to me. Hopefully we can do this again in the future when there's more questions to ask and once the servers have released. Because I think it's really, really nice to actually get to sit down and speak to you guys. I have enjoyed all the experiences I've had speaking to the developers, and a massive shout out should go to them as well, because they're the reason that this server's running and up and going, and all you guys working behind the scenes need that credit because you all deserve it. So thank you guys for the server.
You are so very welcome, but the development team and myself and the rest of the staff, we really thank all of you, because without you, this would not be possible, and we appreciate your continued support and playing on Ascension. We are so excited to bring you our release on the 14th and the 21st, and keep up on the website because the timeline will be being released soon, and you'll be able to see what our full plans for the server truly are. Also, if anybody needs to reach me, I am on Discord under Zukien. You can tag me, you can message me. I will get back to you as soon as I can. Things have been going absolutely ballistic with release, so if I don't respond to you right away, I apologize, but I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can.
Okay, great. Well, I cannot wait to see that. Once again, guys, thank you very much for tuning in and listening to this Q&A. If you've got any questions or any responses or just general chat about the server, then let me know down in the comment section. I'll make sure to read them. And I will see you guys very soon. Let's get hyped, everybody.
Hype is real. Goodbye.